The Sikha we will be learning is a look at the Sikh's Cheluk of Dala, the second Sikha for Pasha Savai. In Meforshe HaTorah is Mavoyer. In the Meforshim of the Torah it says, and the order that Rebbe says is the Ramban and the Abarbanel, the Akedah, different Meforshim and more Meforshim explain as the Inyone von Hepech HaBrocha in their Teichach Efeshe Pasha Seinu that the things which are the opposite of Broch, which means in simple words, the curses that are there in the Teichach means the rebuke that the Torah gives. And the Torah says if you don't keep Torah mitzvahs, all kinds of terrible things are going to happen. So they explain that you need blaze techoches and warnung, was wel kumen im simshe bekel Hashem lekecha. It's not only that this is a rebuke and a warning that if you don't keep Torah mitzvahs, this and this and this bad thing will happen. These are prophecies of things that actually happened later. Beloshna Barbanel, like the Barbanel writes, Royu Sheneda, it's right to know. Shaklolish and Niskar Parsha says that the curses that are mentioned in this parsha, Leiboyu al derech oyim iyum v'gozum v'gizum lahafchid lavav hanoshim. It's not a threat and an exaggeration to scare the people, the heart of the people. Avabo baruch alakim kadishim, that came with the spirit of Hashem, the holy Hashem, in the holy way. Lahagid mashayir b'achrison, to tell us what is actually going to happen later on. Kinakulam niskayim b'chulim, because he explains how they all happened actually b'peil later on. And the Rebbe explains, the psukim for Parshas HaTeichach reden b'chal wegen ne'eina shagolos. The psukim in the Teichach of this week's Parsha, generally speaking, is the punishment of Yidden going to Golus. Like the Pasuk says, V'efitzcha Hashem chol ha'amim v'keimet, that Hashem is going to spread you out throughout all the nations, means you'll go to Golus, to exile, you'll be chased out of Eretz Yisrael, and you go to other places. And the Meforshim explain how all these, explain in detail, how all these things that are here, which are the opposite of bracha, which means the curses, actually were fulfilled after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, which we refer to as Golos HaRevi, the fourth Golos, or also some Meforshim that even things that happened after the exile, the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, which became Golos Bavel, which is the Golos Bavel, etc. And so they explain actually how it happened. As his movement is understood, at the Kavona Betachos from the Yisuri HaGolos from the Teichach, that the purpose, the intentions, and the purpose of all the sufferings of the Golos that we find in the Teichach is not Sulib Chas V'Sholem Nekome Niden. It's not Chas V'Sholem, God forbid, to take revenge of the Eden, or the Stam Sulib Meinich, or plain to punish them. The Dos is Letevosom. All this is Letevosim. The Golos also is for the Teva, for the benefit of the Eden. Like Rasha writes in Pasha Nitzavim, Paklolis Vayisurim, the curses and the suffering, Mekaimim Eschem, they keep you up. Umetzivim Eschem Lefonav, and they put you, make you stand in front of him. In other words, the Golos and all the suffering from Golos is good for the Eden. It makes the Eden stand. So now that we're saying that the Golos is there for the teva of the Eden, for the good of the Eden, so we have to understand. The Gemara zogt, the Gemara says in Masechta Sukkah, Azarbo mischaret aleim hakadosh baruch shaboram. There are four things that Hashem regrets why He created them, or He regrets that He created them. These are the things: Golos, exile; Kazdim v'Yishmaelim. The Kazdim and Yishmaelim are two nations that did a lot of tzarus to the Eden, a lot of problems to the Eden. The Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Hara. So the Eibishter regrets why He created these four things. For them is mashma. From this comes out, if the Eibishter regrets, comes out as Golos, they need Kanteva for it. One of the four things is Golos, and he says it's not good. So obviously, it must be not good if the Eibishter regrets. If Golos would have brought, the Golos also brings some good benefit. Was luli then Golos what when he had it Teva, which means that without the Golos he wouldn't have it. Why should they regret it? If something good, it's for the benefit of the Eden. So it must be that Golos, according to the way the Gemara says, is not for the benefit of Eden, which we said before, it is for the benefit of the Eden. Now in Yerushalmi gefindt man Tage, as es werden gebracht blei schlecht for him. In Yerushalmi we only find there were three things that Hashem regrets. Golos wird nicht der Mond, and Golos is not mentioned there. So maybe that's in Machlokes Bavli and Yishalmi. that in Bavli it mentions it, so the Bavli holds that the Golus is completely bad. And the Yerushalmi holds that the Golus is also for the good, and that's why it's not one of those things Hashem regrets. But the Rebbe says that as Mishum Kusha now, the Montni the Yerushalmi Golus. It's very hard to say that because of this question, that how could you say Hashem regrets for Golus if it's something good? That should be the reason why the Yerushalmi skips mentioning that one of the things Hashem regrets is Golus. Und as in dem is a machlekes zwischen dem Bavli mit Yerushalmi, and that's an argument between Bavli and Yerushalmi to the Inyan HaGolus, whether the Golus, the exile, has a good benefit or not, that the Bavli holds it doesn't have a good benefit. That's why he mentions Hashem regrets, and Yerushalmi that. It's hard to say that that's the reason Yerushalmi doesn't mention it, because Yerushalmi argues on this prat and the Bavli. From the Shaila now is nitnar b'negei Golus. This question is not only specific on Golus. The same idea applies to the other three. Kazdim, Yishmaelim, Yetzirah. Kazdim, the nation Kazdim, and the nation Yishmaelim, and the Yetzirah is really the same thing. That Yerushalmi does mention. And there is the same thing. Obviously, there must be something good in them. And if it's something good, why would they regret? And to say that Yerushalmi holds that it's not good, then the Yerushalmi should have not mentioned these three things either. Yerushalmi mentioned these three things too, shows that it's not the reason Yerushalmi skips Golus is not because he argues and Yerushalmi holds that Golus is good and the Bavli holds Golus is not good. And he's going to go further. B'yeser even more. It's not only these three things. We have a rule. We know it says in Pirkei Avos, whatever Hashem created in the world, everything, kol, everything, he created for his own covet, for his own honor. Which means, everything the Eibishter created. Including the Kazdim and the Yishmaelim and the Yitzhahara, are all for the covet, honor of Hashem. It's for the good. If it's for Hashem, it's for the good. And so how could we say, the question is on the other three also, the Yerushalmi does say those other three. How could he say it, but gave it the other three? But Eibishter regrets. Loshna Yerushalmi, like the Loshna of Yerushalmi is Toha Shaborim. He like regrets, he feels bad that he created them. So you can't answer, he skips Golus, but Golus is good. The other three are also good. And nevertheless, Yerushalmi says it. So you can't say Yerushalmi skipped it because Yerushalmi holds it's good, so that's why he didn't mention Hashem regrets. The Shleimer, so the Rebbe explains it with a big, big introduction. We have a rule that we don't try to keep machlek when you find something that doesn't fit. And the easiest way to say, probably they're arguing. We try to avoid that. As long as there's a possibility, even if it's not the best, it's bedechik. As long as we could say that there is no machlekes, we always try to say there's no machlekes. We must say it makes sense in this case. That we should say that there is no argument between Babel and Yerushalmi to the Eibishter is Mecharat Eichef and Golus, whether the Eibishter regrets the Golus. In other words, the Babel says clearly the Eibishter regrets the Golus. Yerushalmi doesn't say it, but if it's only possible to say that not because the Yerushalmi argues and holds the Eibishter doesn't regret, we have to say that's the pshat. And here we can say it. We have a good reason to say why the Yerushalmi doesn't mention it, not because he holds that the Eibishter does not regret like the Babel. But what? Golus is not something that comes on its own. It's a result of the Yetzirah. If a person allows himself to be persuaded by the Yetzirah, and you do Averis, bring this Golus, that brings Golus. Like we say in Davening, because of our sins, we went to Golus. So it's not something that's be'etzem on its own there. It's a result of the Yetzirah, of listening to the Yetzirah. So you could say, according to this, even according to Yerushalmi, the Balda the Eibishter is Toah of Yetzirah, since one of the three things, even the Yerushalmi says that the Eibishter regrets, is the Yetzirah. Is in them nichlel the Rinyan Golus. That means Golus also, because Golus comes as a result of the Yetzirah. So it's not that Yerushalmi hold that the Eibishter doesn't regret from the Golus. He doesn't have to say it, because he says he regrets from the Yetzirah. Then automatically it's Golus, because the whole Golus comes from the Yetzirah. Now, in that case, what about the Bavli? So how come the Bavli did say it? if you could, by saying Yetzer Hara, it includes the Golas also. So why does the Bavli mention Yetzer Hara separate and Golas separate? So he says like this: since in Yerushalmi, but even when it says the same things in Bavli, it says it more in general. So the same thing here. Yerushalmi speaks short, speaks in general. So since in general the Yetzer Hara and Golas is the same thing, because Golas only comes from the Yetzer Hara, so he doesn't have to mention it as the style, if we could use the word style, of the Yerushalmi. Shenke Bavli, but the Bavli was read the Protis. David goes into detail. He's main Yetzer Hara b'fnei atzmi, Golas b'fnei atzmi. He mentions Yetzer Hara separately and Golas separately. And why would it be this way? So the Rebbe continues. Und das ist verbunden mit dem klolosigen Chilik zwischen dem Derech Halimut von Talmud Bavli und dem Talmud Yerushalmi. This is connected to the general way of learning that Yerushalmi learns and the Derech of learning of the Bavli. And he says, what do we see the difference? The Kama Yonim, in many things, Reiden ze sich in Talmud Yerushalmi bekitzer beklolos. Many things, the way it's written in Yerushalmi, it's short and very general. And it's explained in detail and at length in Bavli. So that's the general derech halimud of Bavli and Yerushalmi. Where Pashtas is the term for them chilik, and simply, what is the reason? The different ways of learning of the Yerushalmi and Bavli. So he says like this: Limud hagemara shebabavli let's get saying na längere Zeit noch chsimas Talmud Yerushalmi. The Bavli, when the Bavli was written. Not written, but the people who are in Bavli, when they're learning, the time span was a very, very long time after Yerushalmi was written already, it was finished. The Chibu v'chsimu from Talmud Bavli, the writing of Bavli and the finishing of Bavli, given achar shechiber Rabbi Yechon and Gemara Yerushalmi b'kemei Yeshana. Rambam says that the Bavli was written about 100 years after Yerushalmi was finished. Rabbi Yechon wrote the Yerushalmi, and this was about 100 years later. As Talmud Bavli is in Geder from Basroi L'Gabe Talmud Yerushalmi. So Bavli is considered later. Basroi is the later ones. But this is only from the timing for was Halacha Ki Bavli Gabe Yerushalmi, which is one of the reasons why, if there is ever an argument, if there is actually an argument in Bavli Yerushalmi, we always pass them like Bavli. Why? There is a rule. Halacha Ki Basroi. If you have an argument between Tanoim, let's say, so a later generation argues on one from a previous generation, we pass like the later one. Same thing, Ameroim. If there is a later Amera, which Paskins says not like the earlier one, we pass like the later one. Same thing here. Since Bavli is later, so we pass like Bavli. But the Chachamim from Talmud Bavli, Zayin Dik Basroi, the Chachamim from Bavli, being that they're later ones, haben gewusst, was es steht in Yerushalmi. They already saw what it says in Yerushalmi. Was Kemosti is given free, like we said before, they finished it before. The Chaklal has Locha Kebasroi, the Locha Kebasroi, which is the general reason why do we always pass them like the later one? The earlier one did not see what the later one says because he wasn't there yet. So maybe had he seen what the later one says, he would have agreed with him. The later one saw what the early one says, and nevertheless he argued. So we pass him like the later one. The same thing Bavli and Yerushalmi. Since Bavli came about 100 years later, so we pass him like Bavli because it's later. Now, what does that got to do with what we're trying to say here? The chilik between kadmoy and basroi b'shtetin. Then what is the difference between the earlier ones and the later ones? But the basroi is a member mefarish v'di kadmoy. The later ones explain it better, and with better is not the right word, but explain it more than explained by the first ones. Just like we find the difference between the Mishnayos, the Mishnah, and the Braise. The Mishnah is a dibur kotzer v'kelel neonim rab. Mishnah is short and small words could contain a lot of things. Loshna Gemara is a shpeter dikizman. The Gemara, so the Mishnah, even Legabe the Braise, the Rebbe doesn't bring the Braise, but I just mentioned it. But even certainly Legabe the Gemara was written later, so the Gemara is more in detail. Al der Zed the chilik in Gemara kufa zwischen der Friedigen, which is Talmud Yerushalmi and Shpetik and Talmud Bavli. So in Gemara itself, you have two Gemaras, Talmud Yerushalmi Gemara, Talmud Bavli Gemara. But since Talmud Bavli was later, so the later ones says it more in detail. My time is Yerushalmi. So now applying it to our case, and for this reason, the Yerushalmi says only nor Gimel Dvorim, says three things Hashem regrets, doesn't mention Golas. Why? Because he says it b'chlolas, because he mentions Yetzer Hara, Golas is included, because the Yetzer Hara is the source of the Golas. Und der Bavli rechnet die Dvorim, Dalet Dvorim beprotis. And the Bavli, which is more detail, so even though in one word you could contain the both, but if you want to go into details, your Bavli goes into these and says these. So that's the bottom line of what we're saying so far is that there is no machlekes Bavli and Yerushalmi. Bavli says Hashem regrets the Golas. Yerushalmi agrees with it. Not we thought maybe Yerushalmi argues, that's why he doesn't mention it. The reason he doesn't mention it, because it's written more bekitzer. So he hints to it, so he holds like that, just doesn't mention it because it's written more bekitzer, more short, and more general. But then the Rebbe asks, till we get to the further point, the continuation, the Rebbe asks, we can have a fragment of the Metzen Klal. We could ask a shaila on this whole klal that we said now, that in Yerushalmi things are more general. Could be the whole the same thing like the Bavli, but it's more general and more bekitzer, short, and Bavli is more at length and more in detail. We're saying that as a klal, the Rebbe says, I have a kasha on this klal. The Gemara says Masich the Tainis. Rabbi Yochanan said, there are three keys given in the hand, which are only in the hands of Hashem and not given over to any shliach. Only Hashem can do it. These are the three things. The key to rain, whether it should rain or not, is only in the hands of Hashem. The key to giving birth, that's also, whether you should have a child or not, is in the hands of Hashem only. And the key to Tchias HaMesim, to revival of the dead. All these things are only in the Eibishter's hands. I think Gemara goes into the details. We do find, but don't find, but we're not going into the details of these three. But just we find these three. The Gemara adds, in Eretz Yisrael, they also said, also the key of livelihood, whether to make panos, and it's also the key of Hashem. So here, we see the opposite. In Bavli, which means in the Gemara in Bavli, it says three. In Eretz Yisrael, which usually we look at that, the Eretz Yisrael, they said this fits to Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi is the Talmud, the Gemara of Eretz Yisrael. There goes into detail. And the Rebbe explains why. Zetman, though, here we see as Adam on the contrary. In Marova, in Eretz Yisrael, is Memafaru to Meisiv Afert Minyan Panos, Afert Minyan. There they gave another detail. Panose. Based as in Bavli is Makelel Makatzer. In Bavli it's short. Because here also, it's not that Bavli doesn't agree that the key of Panose was only in the hands of Hashem. The Bavli didn't say it. The people from Babel didn't say it. But they meant it also. Why? For Panose, it says it in short. Panose is nicht besonderinyan, not a pratam sulfin kshomen. Since one of the three is rain, Panose comes from rain. Rain makes things wrong, and rain gives you the livelihood. So if the Bavli says that three things is the hands of Hashem only, and one of them is rain, doesn't have to make panos, say panos, because it's included. The Gemara the Gemara Taka says clearly, the Rabbi Yochanan, my time of the Kechoshev, the Gemara, why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan also count panos as one of them? Why only three, not four? Omerlach, Rabbi Yochanan will answer, Kshomim, haine panos, rain is panos. Panos is atitzoya from Kshomim. Panos is a result of the rain. Shazeirim, you plant, upeiras gedelim mehem, and the fruit grows from the rain. The panos salem, to give the world panos. So we see here the opposite, that in Bavli, it's short. Bavli also holds of four things concerning the keys. But it says three because it goes short and it makes the two into one. And in Eretz Yisrael, which should be similar to Talmud Yerushalmi, there it goes more at length. But the Rebbe says that's no kasha. The answer is simple. The klal anal siv beis b'negei Talmud Bavli and Yerushalmi. The reason we said with Bavli and Yerushalmi that Bavli is Yerushalmi shorter, more general, Bavli is more in detail, is val Bavli basroi is man l'gabi Yerushalmi. That's not because of the places only, but it's mainly because of the time, as we said before. That means that Yerushalmi came first, and Bavli is later. So when you're later, you have to go into detail. And when we're talking about the opinion in Eretz Yisrael that there is a fourth key that's in the hands of Hashem, that wasn't said before Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was the one that said there are three. Then the Gemara said, "B'marova in Eretz Yisrael they added." Obviously, it's not said before Rabbi Yochanan what said the three. It came after. Nor adrabah Amre in Eretz Yisrael they said af. In themselves man, no better. It says they added at the same time when you said three, they added fourth. So then it comes later. So if it came later, even though it's Eretz Yisrael, That's why it went, if it's later, it went even longer. When we said Bavli and Yerushalmi is short and Bavli is longer, that's because the Yerushalmi is written before the Bavli. But in Bavli itself, when there's something written from Eretz Yisrael but came later, there it's even longer than it should be than in Bavli. Well, the Rebbe says, I want to make a comment. The Mora the Shmaitz in Bavli, the one in Bavli that says there are 3 keys that are in the hands of Hashem. Who said it? Is Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Yerushalmis. He made Yerushalmi. As we said before from the Rambam, he made Yerushalmi. But the Fisa is at the stage. Now it comes out the order is fine. The amendment for Rabbi Yochanan is Al Derech Yerushalmi. Since Rabbi Yochanan is usually Yerushalmi, so when he said 3, it's Rabbi Yochanan that said in the style of Yerushalmi, which is Kadmoyi Kitzer Beklal, which is earlier, because Rabbi Yochanan was before, and he did it short, and he said 3, and included others as a klal. Und the Noch, and then the Gemara says after him, the Marova Amre in Eretz Yisrael, they said Af, also meaning in addition to what he said. That means he's Basroy Legaber Rabbi Yochanan, and the next step in Eretz Yisrael is later than Rabbi Yochanan. So he's adding to Rabbi Yochanan the far Meber Protis, that's Meber Protis. In other words, the later you are, the more detailed, whether you came from Eretz Yisrael or not. So it comes that Rabbi Yochanan in Bavli is similar to Yerushalmi, because he is the author Kiviyachol of Yerushalmi. And then when they says in Eretz Yisrael, they added to what he said, that's something that came later. And that's why it's more detailed. Okay, so we understand that this is the klal. That's getting back to what we started. There's a no machlekes bavri in the Yerushalmi concerning Golus. The Yerushalmi also holds the Eibush regrets and Golus. Doesn't mention it because it's included in saying that he regrets the Yetzer Hara. And Yerushalmi, if you're able to include a few together to make it shorter, In Bavli goes more in detail. So there it says Yetzer Hara also the Golus also the Eibush regrets. Now, but we still have to understand the inyan itself. Since there is the Eibush regrets, and the main thing Hashem wants to negate, so to speak, which is the Yetzer Hara, so why Takadavi if you have to mention it? Even though we said that in Bavli we always go more in detail, but that's when there is a reason for it. The detail makes it more understood. Here it's obvious. Since the Eibush regrets the Yetzer Hara, which is the sibit, the cause of the golas, so there is no reason to specify the mesuviv, the result, which is the golas. Because those is mushlo, but if the sibit, the cause is rejected, then automatically the result is rejected. So here, if we say that the Eibush rejects, so to speak, has charot, regrets the Yetzer Hara, automatically the golas is regretted. So what's the reason to mention it separately? You could explain it by answering a different question. Maybe not a kasha, not a shaila, but something not simple, not smooth. How could you say, how does it fit to say that Golus is one of the things that Hashem regrets why he created it? What does that mean? There must be some creation, something that he made, and he regrets why he made it. Golus is doch nicht kein Brie, wo der Eibush hat beschaffen, wie Metzias versehen. Golus is not something the Eibush created as an entity for itself. As every Yetzer Hara, and the Yetzer Hara is an entity. Kazdim, Ishmael, and these are different entities. Golus is not an entity. Nor the ganze Metzias is open. The whole Metzias of Golus depends on how a person behaves. When the Yetzer Hara read say ein zu tun Averes, when they sind in der Noch nicht Chese b'tshuva. When is their Golus? If the Yetzer Hara comes and convinces the Yid to do Avera, and they don't do tshuva, comes the result of Golus. Kommt is that the ganze Metzias from Golus is stolen by Hagel Shobnei Yisrael. The whole Golus depends on the behavior of Yidden, but not an entity of itself. David regrets that he made the Golus. He didn't make Golus. Golus depends on the people. So we should have to say, because of this problem, as charotev de bria from Golus maintain the bria seinish stam as erchatoim. When the Eibush regrets Golus, doesn't mean that the Eibush regrets that there is such a thing as a punishment for the sins of the Eden. Because if it's only a punishment for the sins of the Eden, then it's not a Metzias. It's only a result of the sins of the Eden of the Yetzer Hara. Nur das, was der Eibischter hat, baschaffen adove chodosh lo'enish golus. Must be that the Eibischter created golus. Golus is a punishment, but there is an entity called golus. And it's not only made as a punishment. Because if it's only a punishment, then it's not an entity for itself. So we must say the Eibischter did make, when he says that he regrets 4 things he created, including golus, means golus is an entity. And it's a new thing. In other words, besides the fact that it does a golus, is a new thing on itself. Because if it's only for punishment, the Eibischter has many ways, a lot of ways how to punish for Averis. When we find in the Teichach Gufe, we find this week Parsha in the Teichach, in the curses of the Parsha, we find many punishments, many suffering. Poskumen of Hedaki Mater mitzvahs come for not doing Torah mitzvahs, not only Golas. So it must be that Golas is an entity for itself, and that's something Eibishter created, and on that Eibishter regrets. We could say like this. In Bavli, this is what the Bavli means, that there are 4 things the Eibishter regrets that he created them. And Golas is mentioned as a separate entity. For a mafal pias Golas is a masubah from Yitzhara, even though Golas is a result of the Yitzhara. It comes as a punishment for Avedas, which is caused by the Yitzhara. But Golas is need dover amuchrech to chasos Yitzhara. But it's not that. Golas is not something that must be through the Yitzhara. Because we said before, if you listen to Yitzhara, you could have another punishment. This is entity for itself, but the Eibishter Bashafen als noch anenish. The Eibishter created a separate punishment which is called Golus. It's not he regrets the punishment for Avedas, and that's what it means. He regrets Golus. He regrets the entity of Golus as the Metzias for itself, which means it is a punishment, but it's an additional punishment which didn't have to be. Mitzad the Avedas of the people, that doesn't have to be Golus, could be some other punishment. So the Eibishter created an entity of Golus, and that's what the Eibishter regrets. That's the pshat in the Bavli. Was there Bavli's Magdim, the Girsas Hashas, Golus Fadei. If you look in the Bavli, you see when it talks about the 4 things Hashem regrets, the first thing he says is Golus. Now there are other Girsas in Gemara, but the way it's in the Girsas in our Gemara, the first thing is Golus, even before the Yitzhara. Why? Golus comes after the Yitzhara accomplishes what he's looking for. He gets a person to an Aveda. So why would Golus be mentioned before the Yitzhara? It comes to stress. That this Hashem regrets the Golus mainly blaze of them Golus bepeil als einish verchatoyim. No, the Shlita Yitzhara does mean he regrets the Golus as a punishment for your Avedas. Then it would have to come after the Yitzhara, because the Avedas were done because of the Yitzhara, so it should say first Yitzhara and then Golus. To tell you that it's an entity for itself. No, but you can have them etzem bria from Golus al seinish. He made Golus as a punishment, but he didn't have to make it. So he made an entity of Golus. And to stress that, he specially doesn't bring it after the Yitzhara to show it's not the Golus that is a result of the Yitzhara. Because from the Yitzhara, you don't have to have Golus. Could be some other things. It's the punishment of the thing that's a canal, like we said before. So this is how we learn Pshat in the Bavli. So it comes out according to this, the Hefresh between Bavli and Yishalmi is, the difference between Bavli and Yishalmi is not nor if neif nalim but b'chal the prot. It's not like we said before, that the difference is, they both hold the same thing. The difference is, do you specify details or you say it b'chlolos, as we said before. Yishalmi says b'chlolos, they basically hold the same. Yishalmi doesn't mention golos because it comes as a result of the Yitzhara, so it's included, and the Bavli not. But now we said that in Bavli, the pshat is the Yitzhara, the golos is not included in the Yitzhara. The Yitzhara is not really the reason for the Golus, because for the Yitzhara, it could be a different punishment. We're talking about the Eibishter regrets the Golus as an entity. Nor an inyan shall pluk. There must be, there is really an argument between Bavli and Yishalmi. The Dasar Yishalmi is the Charot Beblaze of Golus Bepeil. Since we said it in Yerushalmi, Golus is not mentioned because it's included in the Yitzhara. Yes, there is a concept of Golus included in the Yitzhara. Which aspect of the Golus? The aspect of the Golus being a punishment only. So yeah, that comes as a result of the Yitzhara. So if you only go that we're talking about that aspect of Golus, it's not included in the Yitzhara. So the Yerushalmi, who doesn't mention Golus separately, Why? Because it's included, as we said before, in the Yetzer Hara. Yes. So obviously, the Rishalmi is talking about the Golas as a result of the Yetzer Hara. But das is nicht leon the Charote to if Yetzer Hara, because it's included when it says Toho in Yerushalmi, it means he regrets. Included, he regrets the Yetzer Hara, so he regrets what comes out of the Yetzer Hara. Or Benita from Etzem Abriya from Golas. Yerushalmi doesn't. According to that, Yerushalmi is not talking about the mere the entity of Golas. The Baldi Yerushalmi brings the Golas. The Yerushalmi doesn't bring Golas. So the Yerushalmi doesn't bring Golas, we said, because it's included in Yetzer Hara. Which part of Golas is included in the Yetzer Hara? Only the part of Golas as a punishment. So that's what the Yerushalmi is talking about. By Shenkin, like Das Bavli, according to Bavli, that he doesn't mention Golas separately. So the Yerushalmi, the Bavli is talking that Hashem regrets on the Golas as an entity for itself. Okay, now. So it comes out not like we said before. So we have to see, is that the Pshat? And still, the order, we said before, why is Golas first before Yetzer Hara? To tell you that we're not talking about the Golas as a result of the Yetzer Hara of Averis, Golas as an entity. It's still not clear. We explained before why the word Golas came before Yetzer Hara. Es ist aber nicht möglich, für was muss man stellen Golas als ersten von den alle drei Worten. The Bavli says Golas before the other two also. Nazay Eichen the Rayas from the Psukim, the Gemara brings proof for each of the things from the Psukim. So Golas is first, before the Kazdim, before the Ishmaelim. It's only a reason that we said before why Golas is before the Yetzer Hara, to show that it's not a result of the Yetzer Hara. But why is it before the rest? The Leib Rabbi B'chol, and now the Rebbe will explain all this in this way. The Bavli and Yerushalmi teilen sich voneinander nicht, wo is misparat worden. The difference in Bavli and Yerushalmi is not only in the amount of things. In Bavli werden gerechnet 4 Sachen, in Yerushalmi 3. In Bavli is 4, and in Bavli is 4, in Yerushalmi is 3. But is doch achilik b'nei meloshen. There's a difference in the expression. Or b'meil eichent in yemetech, made of an expression. So the contents of what we're talking about is different, even though it's a difference in a word or two. But the Rebbe is medayik at every single expression. The Loshen Bavli is, the expression in Bavli is, Abo Yischaret Aleim HaKadosh Baruch Shaboram. There are 4 things that the Eibishter regrets that he created them. The Loshen Yerushalmi is, Shlei Shabor HaKadosh Baruch Hu, 3 things Hashem created, with Tosh, and he regrets. So what do we see the difference? The says it means like this. In Bavli it says, Gebracht al Tzeinim. In Bavli it only talks about one thing. The Eibishter hat Charot, it was Bashach. It just talks about Charot. It starts with the Eibishter regrets why he created them, including Golas. The Eibishter regrets. In Yerushalmi is eine mutige Sveinyan. The Yerushalmi puts it in 2 stages. First, he says, the Lashon Shlei Shabor HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eibishter created them. Das was Boram HaKadosh Baruch Hu. First, he mentioned the Eibishter created them. And the second thing he says, Das was the Torah Shabor, but he regrets why he made it. So in Bavli, it just talks about Eibishter regretting, and in Yerushalmi, it also talks saying there's 3 things Eibishter created, and he creates why he created it. Okay. What's the difference? This is the difference in what the contents of it means. Moving that poshut, it is obvious, very obvious. As charot elamayla is nit kipshut chas v'sholem, as meshadar daitem is charat chas v'sholem for zach was geton. When you say the Eibishter regrets, doesn't mean chas v'sholem. The Eibishter changed his mind and regrets why he did what he did. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean he regrets why he did it, that he really shouldn't have done it. It brings out that there's something negative about it. That's what he says. The Eibishter regrets means he's stressing that there is something not so good about it. Leidoch is moving. On the other hand, it's understood that the mitzvahs mizokt ados is azach was borak kadosh baruch is v'matish n'tzadatev shebazeh. But by saying the Eibishter created it, it's telling you there's a good thing in it. When you say the Eibishter created something, it's for sure it's good. You say, but you want to say there's something negative about it also. So you say that first you say he created it, and then you say that he regrets to show that there's something negative. Kumtu, he says, in Bavli, in Bavli, it only says there are 4 things the Eibishter regrets. The regret shows the tzad hashlili, the negative part. The opposite of good. Was he's doing the feeling yonim. These 4 things have something negative. And that's what the Yerushalmi is stressed. The Bavli stress. Yerushalmi starts off with 3 things he created. The 3 things he created, and then he says he regrets. That means that by mentioning he created, it means it's good. And then he mentioned there's also something negative. So what's the explanation? This is going to be like an introduction. This thing, like everything in Torah, whether it's in Teire Shebeksaber, in Teire Shebalpen, the written Teire, the oral Teire, it does not nor gezoge vor stam to the Erzählung the Mebish Zanhoge. It's not just time to tell us how the Hashem behaves when Yachas Kolosh Shli to the Nevroim and his relationship to the creation, certainly a negative creation. Was Erod Bashapna that he created, that's what it's trying to tell you, just we should know the Eibush did something negative. That's not what it means. Nor as he's negayet to wissen the mitzvahs from the Nevroim, the Aserusnema from the Mayron, and the Beitas Odom Lekere. He wants to know is concerning what's going on with these creatures, with this creation, today it should affect us in our Vede. Und in dem steht der Unterschied, sie es wird bloß gesagt, als Abom ist Charat Alem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shalom, and that's the difference, whether it says, like it says in Bavli, there are 4 things Hashem regrets why he created, which we said means we're only talking about the negative part, the regret, or there means, or like it says in Yerushalmi, starts off saying, Shleisha Bora HaKadosh Baruch Hu. First 3 things Hashem created, which is positive, and then the same thing, there's also negative in these 3. What is the pshat? When you say just he regrets, that's it, nothing more. In other words, you don't bring out that he also created it. Brings out if you say that Hashem regrets, meaning that it's not a real mitzias, a real being, as a soft bottle. It tells us that if Hashem regrets, that means the end will be, it won't exist. Since he regrets, in Zeh is need the rotzen pnimi from David. David doesn't really want it. The expression he regrets means there's something negative, and the Rebbe made it, so obviously it's good. But we don't stress that part. When we're saying he regrets, means he's bringing out that this is not the real rotzen, the inner rotzen of David. He made it for a reason, but that's not his inner rotzen. That means that really, as the Rebbe will explain soon, it's not a real mitzias. If it's not the real pnimis, the karotzen of Deibishter, it'll eventually not be there. If it'll eventually not be there, as the Rebbe will explain soon, that means that even now when it's there, it's not really a real mitzias, because eventually it won't be there. But if you start off by saying this is something Deibishter created, it is madgish as in Zeis Fran de Bria. Stresses that there is a creation of Hashem, Ubemele the rotzen of Hashem, if he created it and was stressing the good part, means that they wants. So he has a real rotzen there. So they have an eternity in it. Since the made it as a good thing and it's not a good thing, so it's going to remain forever. Everything Hashem made has a nitzulaki, and it's going to stay forever. At the same time, we say David regrets, means there's something negative there. And the negative part won't exist forever. But if you don't stress that he created it, just saying that 4 things David regrets is only talking about the negative part. But on the contrary, their union is in Zay Nitke Metzisa Mitim at Bottleben. When we say it like this, according to Yerushalmi, that David created is good. But there's also he regrets. Now, that thing that he regrets, Taka, means that aspect of it is Taka something no good. But we're saying he created it, means there's a good part and that'll stay forever. The negative part, that part is Taka not a real Metzias. It'll become bottle. Is moving the Tam Hashina between Bavli and Yerushalmi. Now we understand the difference in Bavli and Yerushalmi. In Yerushalmi, Yerushalmi is talking about things that will exist forever. Because the Rebbe made it. Baruch HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Yerushalmi says there are 3 things the Rebbe created, they're forever. The Farbel since the Rebbe made it, and it's going to be forever. Says Norva, the Tzad HaLeitiv, but the negative part that's there, the Rinya Shlili, the negative one, Vet Bottle Ven, that's the meaning of the word Tov Shabbat, and he regrets he created it, means that it's not something, that negative part will become bottle later on. Now it's there, but it'll become bottle. That's so it says like that these things. So when the Yerushalmi says there are 3 things Hashem created, and then regrets, telling us that these are 3 things that have an aspect that will be forever. They also have an aspect which is not going to be forever. And if it's not going to be forever, it's not even a Metzias now. But the good part of it is going to last forever. When the Rebbe is like Yerushalmi Mashman the Prat van Golas, and that's why Yerushalmi going with that direction that we're talking about the good part and the negative part, he skips Golas. He says, Golas bepelis kula ninya shlila. Golas has nothing good in it. When we in gansel bottom, when lost it, it become bottle. When the Rechem Nagim with water, he only counts the other 3 that they will remain forever. But they're bad things. But the 3 things are Kazdim, Yishmeelim, Yitzhara. This is they're going to stay. Yishkazdim Yishmelim Argoyim. The Goyim are going to be lost at love. Ze will not be done. Zayin and Neif must need nor ze will need masik ze need chas shalom. They'll be in a good way. Not only will they not harm Yidden, rather, but the contrary, they will this happen they will change for good. Und will noch aushelfen die Yidden, they'll help the Yidden. Like it says, the strangers mean the Goyim will take care of your sheep. It says another post, it goes, Hashem said the nations will change their language, make it clear, leak the kulam b'shem Hashem. They'll all call in the name of Hashem, love the Shechem Echad. They will all take all on the burden upon themselves to call in the name of Hashem. So the two things of Kazdim and Yishmaelim has a good part in it. In other words, they're not going to come bottle us at love it. The back part that they'll be bad, that part will be bottle. But they were created. So there's a good part, and that'll stay forever. As I say, but it's hard also. As lost love it, but bottle the evil part of the Yitzhara. But the fact that the Yitzhara has a certain power that will be changed for good and bezayin lost love it. It'll be lost love it. It'll be in the future. But like I said before the chet, so it says the Nochash, the snake, was really the Yitzhara at that time. The Gemara says, Shamash Gadol, he was a big servant. He would help a lot. Had he continued being, this would be a great help. He would be good. They said, the Dukmas Ayis and Shabal de Tshuva, even more. Just like through Tshuva, you get a bigger Kayach. So the Yitzhara will have that Kayach. And we will have the Yitzhara, but the Yitzhara will be changed for good. That's when they be lost love. So that's Pshat that in these three things, the Kazdim and Yishmaelim and the Yitzhara, there's a good part, and that part will stay. Won't be, and the bad part will become bottle. And that bad part, because it'll become bottle, it's never a Metzias. Because haste, das nicht nur zu liebe Telos im Meilen Yitzhara, was durch Misgabe sein auf sich auf ihm, kommt der Yitzhara Meilen Madrege. And they're the same, because when we're saying here that the Yitzhara will remain, and it'll do good, doesn't mean it'll do good, like, because since it's a Yitzhara, and if you overcome the Yitzhara, you reach a higher Madrege. From Ken says, because if that's what the Yitzhara is going to be future, Golos is also like that. Golos also, if you overcome the Golos, but that's a side thing. When we say the Yitzhara is going to stay, it means to them, but the Yitzhara atzmei bet zayin kayim lo set lovei. The Yitzhara himself will be, not only he has accomplished a good thing, he is good. By he will be changed, transformed for good. Now, derech steht in Yerushalmi, it says in Yerushalmi, it's Avram Avinu olav Shalom, concerning Avram, it says, I found his heart, Neman, trustworthy for the Eibishter, but it says Lavove with two basin. It could have said Leib. Two basin, the Yerushalmi says, as Avram Avinu also Yetzer Hara Tev. He made the Yetzer Hara Tev. Not that because of the Yetzer Hara he became greater. He turned the Yetzer Hara to become good. Everyone could do it. It's certainly temporarily. So the Yerushalmi is talking about that. So he's talking about the things that will stay for lost love. And since in these three things, whether it's the two of the Goyim and the one of the Yitzhara, they will be for the future. And the Rambam, the Yerushalmi is talking in a case of the things that will stay forever. Because Hashem created, that's why he says Hashem created it, so it's good. He regrets also because the bad part, but the good is those things are really good. In Bavli, it only says these are four things which the Eibishter is mischarat aleim. The Eibishter regrets, which means was wird soft bottle when it become bottle. Das heißt, wegen dem Leitev shebehem was wird bottle werden. There is talking about the negative part. That'll be only talking about the negative. He's not talking about the good part. So it's only talking about and that taka will be bottled completely. See, in Yerushalmi, he's talking about there'll be a good part. And that's why we'll see he doesn't mention Golas. We'll see in a second. The Rebbe is Babli Meisip the Ferten Prat Golas. That's what the Babli has Golas also. See, Golas, we said, is not going to be good. It has no good in it. But the Babli is not talking about the good part. He doesn't mention the good part at all of everything. So if we're talking just about the bad part, so all four things are bad. And the bad part exists in all four. And that's the reason why Golas in Bavli is the first. While the Rinyan Ashlila Bitl is by Golas Beifi Yeser Muchvel by the andere Protim. Because by Golas, this concept that there is definitely the bad, the main thing is the bad, by Golas we see it more than the other things. By Golas we see it. Golas bring Tiden Sahecher and Mailo Shlemas. Golas does have good, which means not in itself. it has the good that it brings Yidden to good. It makes Yidden to go to a higher level. Was nur ja Golos, was es nicht gekannt der Griechen zu sagen, Giluf in Kirche am Siris Nefesh, Chuluk im Burim HaKam HaKim. It says many Mamorim that the only reason Yidden have, when do Yidden have the real Kirche am Siris Nefesh? By Golos. So the Golos brings out Siris Nefesh. So it's true, Golos has that part, but not that the Golos itself is good. The Golos is a cause for something good. You saw aber Atelas was kommt als Tetzov in Golos. It's a benefit that comes as a result of the Golos. Aber the Golos, goof, the Golos itself, the Mitzias ha-Golos, but in ganzen bottle werden lost at love. The Mitzias ha-Golos become bottle completely. It says, Agula nitz cheshen achra Golos. It says, we have it, when the Gula will come, there is no Golos, there is no Mitzias ha-Golos. But the Akdome, it's ha-Golos, when the Bavli starts off with saying that the things Hashem regrets is four, but he starts off with Golos, is the Bavli Bola Lamed. So the Bavli teaches us if the under of the Ibrike Gimon, that teaches us what is the meaning of the other three. See, the other three we said have good, and they will stay later the good part. But the Vavli is not talking about the good part. So how does he tell us that he's talking about the bad part? So he starts off with Golos, which is the only bad. And that teaches us that we're not talking about the good part of the things. That the good part, which is brought out in the fact that Hashem created them. And since Hashem created them, there's good, and they will rest forever. By writing Golos first, which is only a negative thing, teaches us the Bavli is only talking about the negative part. It's not a real Metzias, and it'll become bottled completely. So now we see what the difference Bavli and Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi talks about the good part also. And he's telling us there are three things which have a good part and a bad part. And the bad part, Hashem is has charot, and that part will become bottle. Doesn't mention Golos, because Golos doesn't have a good part. And he's talking about the good part also. In Bavli, he's only talking about the bad part that will become bottle. So Golos is like that too. Actually, Golos is the one that stresses it more. So that's why Golos is first. Ja, Schleimer, als ich der Bier ist verbunden mit dem vollständigen Chiluk, was man gefunden bekam und bekäme zwischen Shittas Bavli und Shittas Yerushalmi. This way, before we said that the difference between Bavli and Yerushalmi, in the beginning we said that Bavli, Yerushalmi is shorter, Bavli is longer, fits to the general style of Bavli and Yerushalmi. The Rebbe says now what we're saying, that the difference is whether we look at the good also, or we're looking only at the bad, is also connected. The Yerushalmi only looks at the good, and the bad part will become bottled, but the good part will stay. And the Bavli is not talking about it fits also to the general difference that we say sometimes between the way Bavli learns and the way Yerushalmi learns. As I said many times, that Shittas Bavli rechnet man sich beikir mit dem Matzev ihres Beheve, und Shittas Yerushalmi guckt man beikir auf Matzev Shebosit, und das Machriya und Geber auf Matzev Shebeve. Rebbe, many sichas you see in Marabokim in number 51, different places look at the sichas, where the Rebbe explains that a lot of times there is question in certain situations, do you look at now, do you look at later? Just to give a very simple example. If a doctor tells somebody on Sem Gedalia that the way you are now, you could fast today, because even though your health is weak, but nothing will happen. But if you fast today, remember, you won't be able to fast Yom Kippur. So if you look at the now, the present, now you could fast, so you have to fast Sem Gedalia. Yom Kippur will come, you won't fast. Good, you won't be able to fast. Pruach Nefesh, it'll be, so you won't fast. Or you say, no, you have to look now already what's going to be the future, and that's what counts. So the Rebbe says, not in this situation in Bavli and Yerushalmi, but this is an example of such a situation. And the Rebbe brings different machlekes in Bavli and Yerushalmi, and he says that Bavli looks mainly the way it's now. Like in the example I gave, now you could fast. What's going to be later is not what we look at. And Yerushalmi would be, not that it talks about this case, but the Yerushalmi would say, no, we have to look at the future. If the future, if Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur is more strict than Sem Gedalia, so you should eat today and be able to fast Yom Kippur. So the Bavli looks always at the present, and Yerushalmi looks at the future. So this difference that we said before is connected. Whether we're looking, like the Bavli only talks about Hashem regretting, which means we're looking about the negative part, which will become bottle and will not stay forever. Or we're also talking and stressing the good part. The part, like Yerushalmi, that we said, talking about the Eibusher created it, but the Farvel, they lost it, that's why they will remain and become good. This is connected to this question, whether we look at the present or we look at the future. Why? Aninia was what bottle when lost it is not kemetzias amit is Eibusher's human baby. As I said before, anything that will become bottle later on, eventually, means that even while it's there, it's not really a Metzias, a real truth. But the Frage findet we find the Halache. Horas was werden ausgetrickend, able in 7 Jahren, wenn non gerufen Horas am Chazvin. There's certain things that you need to make toyer. The water has to be Maim Chayim, live water. There are certain rivers that once in 7 years they dry up. So the Gemara, the Mishnah calls it Horas am Chazvin, liars. Women liars. Since now it looks like fresh water, good water, but since eventually it won't be there, so even now it's a lie. We have to use this water for the paradum, etc. So you can't use them. It's not live water. Now it's alive, but since eventually it won't be alive anymore, so it's not even alive now. Since for sure after 7 years it won't be there anymore. Then is in the beginning when it started, they still have 7 years to live. But because we know eventually it won't, it's not a real Metzias. It says there, so we say, if we talk something that will become bottle osid love, so it's not a Metzias now either. So it comes out the head of Metzias Shabem is a Metzias matzah behavior, it is very bottle. So when we say that these things which eventually become bottle are not a Metzias, doesn't mean it's not a Metzias then. It's not a Metzias now. Anything that we know will become bottle is not a real Metzias now. But the good part, that they'll be good, is achidush. That's something new. It's against the nature of what's now. When will that come that this will be nitzchi? If it's not a Metzias now, but something new will happen, it will become a Metzias. That's a matzav shabosi. That's the future. So if you look at, depends what you look. On the far, we'll look inside. On the far is the Bavli Madgish Mitzad Ashlila from the Dalet Vorim. That's what the Bavli, which always goes on the present. So he says, we're talking about the negative part. The negative part means something that will not be forever. It'll become bottled. The negative part will become bottled, which means it's not there Metzias now. So when Bavli talks about these things, he goes according to his own shita, always looks at the present. The present now, it's not a Metzias. But the Yerushalmi is not looking at the present. The Yerushalmi looks at the future. So Yerushalmi looks at the good part because the good part will fully be in the future, but the future is more important than the present. That's why he talks only about the good part, which is going to happen. The Nitzchi is the eternity of the good part is going to come then. Now, Taka, there's a problem with it, but it'll be then something new will happen. So if you look at the future, that's the Yerushalmi. So Yerushalmi talks about the good part. And the Bavli, which looks at the present, looks at the bad part, which will become bottle, which means it's not a Metzias now either. When this is als Eile bekon echad min dechile kloli between Bavli and Yerushalmi. This fits to a general difference between Bavli and Yerushalmi. Wegen Talmud Bavli, very gesagt, concerning Talmud Bavli, it says, Nachshaki me shivani, there's a posik that says that you put me into darkness. So the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Zeh Talmud Shel Bavel. That's the Talmud Bavli. As in Bavel is a matzah in Hell West, it's dark. That means in Bavel was a time of concealment, of darkness. Darkness means you can't see. There's no light, so you can't see, concealed. You have to separate, you have to purify the light, taking it out of the darkness. Yerushalmi is b'chinas. Yerushalmi is a level of light. Bavli is darkness, Yerushalmi is light. That's what it says in many places. Dos guf is a tam, was in Yerushalmi regnet sich den Yonen bekitzer b'chlolos, on ribe populim shaklataria. In some places, it's explained what we said before that Bavli, it's more length and detail than Yerushalmi. Not is connected to this, that Bavli is dark and Yerushalmi is light. Meaning, in Yerushalmi in Bavli there's a lot of kashas. What are kashas? Kashas means you don't understand. In discussion, that's a darkness. So therefore, you have it long. You have to go productive in details because it's not clear. Lightness is clear. Light is clear. And Yerushalmi things are clear. That's why it's shorter. Well, there, give an example. You're in a place that's light. So whatever you're looking for, you see it right away. If you're in a dark room, you have to feel it and look for it. It takes a long time till you find what you're looking for. The same thing when you're looking for a din, looking for a svara. If it's dark, you have to, think and think around, and maybe this, because it's not clear, but if it's light in Svara, you see the Svara right away. And that's what Yerushalmi. Shalmi is light. When the Rebbe is a matzah from the air, Talmud Yerushalmi, when it's a level of a situation of light, like Yerushalmi, belaichtos and mezed bekalus lefiere de pnimis and the memes from the Zach was is, wie sie wird sein los lo netzach. So in Yerushalmi, you see light. When light, you see clear. But you see clear, you see what's going to be later. So we said before that Yerushalmi talks about the future. Why? Because if things are clear, you see it much better. And you see even what's going to be in the future, what's going to be forever. But then so Yerushalmi sees right away the things that in the future will become good and be forever. Like we said before, these things will become good, will be good. Yerushalmi sees it. Yerushalmi sees the future, that the fact that Hashem created it and made it means it's something good and it will last forever. Yerushalmi sees it. And that's why Yerushalmi speaks about that part. But if you're in the level, in a situation where your seichel is dark, then you have to go like the way you learned in Bavli. And you don't see the inside of the things. What will come out later. But you see what you see. What you see now, you can't see. It's not clear to see the future. When in them, and you have to work for it. You have to work, and there's dark, and darkness is not a real Metzias. So what you see now is not a real Metzias. You don't see the truth of it. This is not a Metzias Amiti, and it works hard even for you to find out it's not a Metzias Amiti. It's not a real Metzias. You have to work for hard to find it. So they look at now, and now it's not a Metzias Amiti, but you have to work hard to get it. So the Bavli will see that it's not a Metzias Amiti now. The fact that there's something that will be good later, that they don't see. But in Yerushalmi, you do see. The Erovas Nemtarus Mikola. Now, the lesson we take out from all this. First of all, you got to remember that Golus is one of those things Hashem regrets. Golus is neither Emes or Maimed Matzav as the Reibish to Vilchas V'Sholem, as Eden is also dort gefunden. Golus is not a situation that Hashem Chas V'Sholem wants. That's what Eden should be. When we das Eden, why do we tell this to Eden? Well, by Zaydav Zayin nicht Zufriedenkeit mit Golus. We tell this to the Eden that the Eibush regrets. So you should not feel good about it. You should know that it's not such a good thing. Golus is aneinish mepnei chateinu. Golus is a punishment. It's not something that's good. When I eat filled Rachmanu Litzlan, anders, und sagt das ja Pasuk in Matzah for Eden, if I eat feels differently. And it says, no, Golus is a good place for Eden. Sagt hepech mit dem Rotzen Hashem. So he's saying against what Hashem wants. Was HaKadosh Baruch Hu mischaret, we said Eibush regrets. Hashem doesn't want it. Und the charot is b'chol yom. Every day Hashem regrets. Afila b'Tisha B'Av case. Even on Tisha B'Av, any day of represents Golus, Hashem regrets it. Once he's verstandig, the grace of finsternis von sein Golus b'Teir Golus. A person who doesn't realize how bad it is, so not only is he in the Golus, he's in the Golus b'Teir Golus. It's not only does he think that the darkness is good, even that it's so dark that he doesn't realize it's dark. It's a Golus b'Teir Golus. So that's the first thing to know. Golus is not for us. Really, is a bad thing. The Yidach Chober, on the other hand, turns us nitzayin na'if is all rein from the Morashchedach as Shalom. Shouldn't be in a way that you become sad. It shouldn't be sad, and don't care about the Golus. These nikadas is nikademis and mitzias. You have to realize it's not a real entity, a real mitzias. As I read so because of mamish bottle, then you have to know that eventually, soon, not just eventually, soon it'll become bottle. The fact that Mahalchem because in the Mashiach, certainly when holding so close to Mashiach, we have to do things to hasten, because it says Mashiach could come earlier. So you have, if it's up to you to make it faster. So you have to work hard, make it faster. From the case of Golus, that the end of the Golus should come. Golus is darkness, you have to add light. Through Neir mitzvah like a candle, and Torah is like light. When they meet, vertreiben noch schneller die Finsterkeit von Golus, and chase away faster the darkness of Golus. So that's two things. So number one, we have to know that it's dark and it's not good. On the other hand, we should know that it's up to us. We could change that, and we could bring the light. From this Gemara, we could also take a lesson how we should behave with Goyim. And because two of the things that Hashem regrets is Kasdim and Yishmaelim, which are the Goyim. So what's the lesson? You shouldn't get inspalled from them. Say, Homnit can take it from Metzias and Gezer. It's not the Siddishkeit. There's no strength They're not a Metzius. If they fight, they oppose Yiddishkeit. Und der Fahrt davon nicht, bis man da goes, so even during Golas, when we talk about Yiddishkeit, and when you talk to God, you have to speak very strong. You have to be strong in your Yiddishkeit. Therefore, it says in Gemara, wegen der Meifen, wie Gewier beim Sisa hat mit sie gerät. Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that the Goyim came to complain to Alexander the Great about the Eden, that they took away the land, all kinds of things. I'm not to go into the details. And the Eden didn't know what to answer. So Gewier beim Sisa came and spoke to them very clear and very sharp. They had nothing to answer and they ran away. So that shows how you speak to Goyim. Because to realize that what their challenges is not a real challenge. Those bring us noch bis man a Golas, and that causes that even while we're still in Golas, so the behavior of the Goyim will be that the kings will be your nurses, and their soris will be the ones that will nurse the children. Because Gemara says that the Pasuk says that Mashiach will come, not only will we be not under them, they will serve us. It was already many times that the Goyim, the kings of the Goyim, served the Eden. We find the story in Gemara, but the Rabbi is it's a story in Torah, in the Gemara. And as Al-Zayin Ayirov and Teras Chaim, if it's in Torah, so Torah is a Torah of life. So this is a lesson for life. What does the Gemara say? A story we saw already in the time of Golas that the kings served the Eden. The Gemara says like this: Omar Rabbi said, Omar Lehuna ben Nosson, Lehuna ben Nosson told him, Zim nechoda b'kaim nekama di Izdagar Malka. There was once I was by in front of a king. Izdagar is the king. He was a Melech Poras, Rashi says. He was the king of Persia. Have a midli hamyonim v'taisin nehele. Sein Gartel is given ongeton zuheich. The Gartel he was wearing, Lehuna ben Nosson, was too high. It wasn't in the right place. It was more closer to the underarm. He's if shilei hamelech lamatek leinaisei. So the king lowered it down. And he said to him, why am I lowering it down? And he said to him, to Rabbi ben Nosson, it says that you are a nation of Kehanim and a holy nation. And therefore, like Rashi says, if you're like Kehanim, you have to be with the beauty of Kehanim. It says by Kehanim that the garments they wore cannot be touching underarm because they're sweating there, whatever. So you also shouldn't do it. He also commented on Meimer. So when he came and told on Meimer this story, he said, this, you see here that on you was fulfilled this passage where it says the kings will be the ones that will work for you. If a Yid behaves in a way that you could see, it's obvious that he belongs to a holy nation, a nation of Kehanim. So the kings of the Goyim say, he has to be beautiful. When they come from sich allein helfen in them, on them. On their own they come. No one asked them to pick up. He on his own realized, and he saw that it's missing the Tiferes, and you should be Tiferes, and he went on his own and did it to him. One never knows about it. That they, if you show the Yiddishkeit with strength, then they will do things for you. But Teire is forever. It's a illuminated way of showing the way, guide, and lesson for every Yid. Every Yid who is proud of Torah being his inheritance, that you don't bow down for Goyishkeit, which symbolizes what the Goyim represent, and not for the Goyim themselves. And in Order 62, the Rebbe adds a certain point. This will explain why Rav Huna himself, if he were in the wrong place and he was going to stand in front of the thing, why didn't he pick it up himself? So he says, why? This is a lesson. It says, why did Moshe forget the halacha that Pinchas remembered? So Pinchas should be able to come and do it and get what he deserves. So he specially left, didn't do it. So the king should do it to be a lesson for the people to do it. And certainly shouldn't bow down for Goyishkeit, for Goyim, which reminds it's not negated. This I'm just saying. I heard a story. Some other people say the same story in different version. That the Rebbe, when he'd walk home a lot of times, he would pass by a kollel that was in Crown Heights, and the people in kollel would know when the Rebbe walks by, they would stand outside, and the Rebbe would shake his head to them, bow down like this. Once they saw there was a goy, a mailman, a policeman, I don't know, was a goy, and the Rebbe stopped and said a word to him, said something to him. So later, someone asked the Rebbe, here to these young guys to learn in kollel, you didn't say a word, and to the goy you said something. So the Rebbe answered, to you it's enough, I bow down my head. I never bow my life, bow down my head to a goy. So, but I wanted to be respectful. So I said something so he shouldn't feel slighted. Because don't bow down to a guy, the Rebbe says, or Koidishkeit. Ubiyachad mit der Aveda from Mashana Zayin, Mahapaz and Yitzhara, together with the Aveda of changing, transforming the Yitzhara, Bisa Madrege, V'chol Vavcha, B'shnei Yitzhara, to the Madrege that you serve Hashem with both Yitzhara and the Yitzhara, Ashen Itz Bisman for Erev Shabbos. Now, which is right before Mashiach's coming, is like Friday before Shabbos, is Mateyim Kol Tavshel Tavshel. It says, Mogen Avram, the Friday you should taste from the food of Shabbos. So the same thing. Mashiach's coming is called Shabbos. Now it's before Shabbos, so we have to taste of the food. So we have to taste from the food of Losid Lovi. So we have to, now it should already be that the kings, we should stand strong and the kings will work for us. Das is Mezaret Yud Kates Som Hashem Lacheshech. The Eibush is going to make an end to the darkness, which is Bitl Agolas, to destroy the Golas. Das kommt miyad die Gula Amitav Tashlema de Mashiach Tzkein. Now right away comes the true redemption, the complete redemption through Mashiach Tzkein.